One, and we're live. Hello, my name is Sean Plott.
And I'm Bill Grainer.
And I'm Sean Bouchard.
And welcome to MetaDating, the show where we explore the theme of romance in interactive media, particularly games. And it's our final episode.
It is.
And because we know how to go out with a bang, this is pre-recorded. So for any of you who are watching live, I want you to know that we still feel the intimate link with you in our final hours together. In today's episode, what we're going to be doing is kind of a recap of everything that has happened in the past. We want to talk a little bit about what our favorite games are, our least favorite games are, what we think is great about the themes of romance that we've seen explored in games, the way the mechanics could be changed, and what else we'd like to see. We'll also be discussing some of your ideas, in particular, an extensive set of ideas contributed by the wonderful Davin, who, according to our email box, sent about one a day, and was thinking about it every day. So we appreciate that.
Yeah.
But without any further ado, I first want to begin by asking you fine gentlemen what you're drinking. Bill, because you're the second person I see on the screen, I will ask you next.
Can I interject? So the way it works, the way that it's working, like, would it be possible for us to go and lurk on the comments of our own YouTube video when this comes out?
Yeah, Bill, you can like watch and comment on this rebroadcast live. So if any of you see a suspicious looking Bill in the chat, it's him.
I might do that. You know, anyone you see on the street might be me in that chat. So here, Bavarian style Hefeweizen, unfiltered wheat beer. It's by Josef's Brau, San Jose, California. Oh, okay. So it's California German. Well, it's good though. It's nice and wheaty. It was actually purchased by my housemate because she wanted to make beer bread, and I've been drinking all of them. So,
so you might just have bread at the end of the day.
Yeah, beer and bread.
I will say that's
so wrong.
No, that's a personal struggle I have. I mean, you and I both know my roommate Kyla, who's amazing and makes all this like delicious food, and she uses beer when she makes chili. She always makes these huge vats of chili, and I too steal the beer. And when she's like, "Sean, did you drink all my beer?" I never resolve to not do it in the future. I'm just like, I'm so sorry. I should not have done that, and that was wrong. And here's $5 to pay for more beer, and I will always give you $5. You know, it takes $6. And then I'm absolved of guilt, and then I'm stressed out. I need to have another beer at that point.
Right, you have to.
Yeah, at that junction.
And of course, Sean, I'd like to send off to you. What are you drinking?
I'm not terribly excited tonight. I had too much liquor built up in my pantry, so I got a rum and coke, but I've kind of front-loaded it a little bit. So, yeah, I'm feeling good.
You want to start the show off strong.
That's right, exactly. It's important.
Coke. Actually, I want to address an issue from a couple shows ago when people seemed to think that I was drunk at the start of the show. That's not actually true, although I've been very curious as to maybe there was some chemical reaction with like a bologna sandwich I'd eaten or something that was causing me to exhibit signs of drunkenness. I don't know.
I mean, I certainly know that sometimes when I have a bologna sandwich, it impairs my ability to drive. But I mean, like, what happens with you? Do you sometimes like eat a bologna sandwich and
did you say
bologna sandwich?
That's gotta be God, that's fantastic.
Wow.
Somebody makes something with the title bologna sandwich.
I went all Freudian slip like in minute 4 of the show intensity. Yeah, I mean.
Never gonna see that bologna sandwich again.
But dude, I'm not gonna lie. I actually struggle with the same thing, Bill. Few things hurt more than when people, because I for any of you who don't know, I do another show that's about StarCraft strategy, and I break it into 3 parts. And the reason is because it's really hard to talk straight for like an hour and 20 minutes by yourself. So I take like a 2 to 3 minute break and like get water. But I have really dry eye problems, so my eyes will occasionally be a little red at the end of the day. And everyone's always like, dude, he is so high. He is so hitting the bong and the brakes. In reality, I had a course of Accutane when I was in high school, and I had such a violent reaction to it, I was pulled off halfway through, and I've had horrible dry eye problems for the rest of my life. It's like, dude, I have to like use these like hyper lubricating eye drops and stuff, and then I like go live, and people are like, dude, that guy's like so totally high, he's like so totally blazing right now, and I'm like, no, they're very dry, they get sticky.
I remember that actually. I remember you having. You once told me that you had been wearing contacts that, for the last like 7 years, had made your eyes like terribly painful.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I had like 24-hour the contacts you could keep in all the time, and they pull it off the market because apparently you just can't have contacts in all the time. Apparently that's like not good for your eyes. So you know. Yeah. So I've had a lot of issues with that, but I had PRK surgery on this eye. So in a little while I'm gonna have it on this eye. So then soon enough I'll be able to just open up my eyes in the morning and look at things.
Oh, PRK, like permanent rectal.
Different
go
thing,
on,
Bill.
go on. What is the K? Where's the K
different
gonna be?
thing, Bill.
I can only the only word that comes to mind is kangaroo, but I want to know what. We're going to get to the show at some point, but
cool.
Either way, I had that with my eye, and
Keratin.
Keratin, yes. Permanent rectal keratin. So that way basically they put horse tranquilizer in my eye, Bill. In other news, because this is the conclusion of MetaDating, I'm having Behringer's Cabernet. It's amazing. It's like it's $7.99 a bottle unless you buy 6 bottles, in which case it's $5.99.
What did you do, Sean?
I got a great deal. So, I want to kick off the show by just first saying what the games that we played were for any who are, new or, perhaps the goldfish of the show who don't even remember what we've been doing since the start.
Yeah. And this is actually, you can watch MetaDating backwards. You can use this as your intro, and then you'll know what to watch for, and then each show will just get slightly worse.
It is the futon experience. So we started off with Hot to Full Boyfriend, which was in the genre that many describe as the Japanese dating sim, where you are a human at a school for intelligent birds and intelligent pigeons. Kind of a ridiculous premise, but actually a fairly well-done game. Then we moved on to Facade in the second episode that really explored this idea of conversation. You could type in anything you wanted, and it was going to try to mimic actual interaction between 3 people. Like very abstract, interesting sort of concept. Then we had Catherine in episode 3, which was, it kind of like took the emotions of a relationship and abstracted it into this puzzle mechanic, but then also threw in some really genuine real-life sort of debates that you have, like how to respond to a text message. You give options for that. MetaDating episode 4 was probably my favorite in terms of the games we played. This was the indie game selection where we played Passage, Loved, and Judith, the 3 of which I do believe are all free. Episodes 5 and 6, we returned to the Japanese dating simulation genre and played what is considered to be one of the most tastefully done, really emotionally evocative ones, Katoa Shouju, where you are... the character has... It's heart arrhythmia? Am I remembering this correctly? Yeah. So you play a character with a heart condition who has to go to a school with people who have various conditions that can be or medical conditions and whatnot, and sort of explores the relationship dynamics there. And then in last episode, we went absolutely bonkers shit and played The Sims 3 Late Night. Yay! Where absolutely nothing made sense. We met a celebrity in a park who like puked on a child, so we ran to an elevator and fell in love with a girl, and she married us before we even went into the movie theater on our 3rd date. And then we tried for baby in an elevator, and
and then Chad was not amused.
Yeah.
Chad
Buttbag. Sean
started like Chad.
Who started a Twitter account, which is fantastic.
Wait, twitter.com/Chad Buttbag. Are you really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Enjoying looking at myself in the mirror. Roommates can get crazy. Oh my god, he's active. Oh my god. Twitter.com/ChadButtbag. He has 15 followers. Wow. Okay, I had no idea. Wow, Bill dropping the knowledge bomb. So of those, I want to do a little baton passing, which is a very dangerous phrase to use in a show about dating. But I want to do a little baton passing and ask you what your favorite games were and why.
Who are you?
Or least favorite?
Who? Is my owl impression.
Sean.
All right. I mean, it's tough because I liked different things about a lot of these games. I think I keep coming back to Loved is just one of my favorite games. I like what that does so much. And I was thinking about it today, and I can't help but keep coming back to this. One of the things that I loved about it, as I was thinking about like patterns that we've seen over and over, and in what we're really doing, what we're playing games that try to systematize relationships, right? Yeah. That try to take like the experience of being in a relationship and boil it down to a system of rules that then like you can go through procedurally and see things happen. And one of the things that we see a lot is this idea that relationships, when you systematize them, turn into some kind of a linear progression. Some kind of a, like, you meet a person, and then the more you invest in the relationship, either through some kind of an in-game currency or time or just playing the game more, the further you progress this relationship. And it goes in a linear way towards a final progression that might be marriage and having a baby, but is frequently sex. And Loved, one of the things that I just loved about Loved is that it sort of takes that idea of a relationship as a linear progression and splits it. Loved is still, it's a very linear continuum, but you don't start at the beginning of it. And actually, it's not. You know what? I take it back. It's not linear. It's this sort of multiplicity of, or it's
hyper-threaded.
It's not hyper-threaded. It's two paths projected on each other, right? So it's really simple. Like it doesn't try to get into the complexity of a real relationship. It maintains the simplicity of this like linear progression. You just go from point A to point B, but instead of point A to point B, you've got these two different paths that you're going down, and you can't stand still. Like you can't be neutral. And the two paths, they're not point values. It's not, light side, dark side points, where if you get an equal number of both, then you end up in the middle. Like you always have to move forward, and you're always moving down these two paths, and you don't have to go all the way down one, but when you don't, you're sort of mixing them together, and it creates this sort of emergent complexity that I feel like is much more the feeling of being in a relationship.
Wait, is it not light side, dark side? I can't remember.
No, it's so the two sort of paths that you can take both add complexity to the scene in different ways. One of them adds detail, and the other one adds color.
Oh, right. Yes.
And so you're always adding more complexity.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's color and sometimes it's detail.
And what I actually really liked so much about Loved is just how focused it was.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably agree that it was like my favorite one because in general, I love games that really focus hard on doing one thing really well. I'm going to use Super Meat Boy as like, I think the perfect example of this. Like you just move and jump. And that's it. And they said, like, how can we continue to explore this and have it build on itself? I actually remember one of the most painful examples of the opposite of this was the game Sonic Unleashed. I don't know if you guys saw this.
I think so. I think so.
God. It was brutal because the first level, it's a racing game, like traditional Sonic, right? You're just running so fast. It's like this postcard perfect architecture just like flying past you at light speed, and it feels amazing. And then when you beat the level, it turns into a brawler where you become a werehog and you like beat people up, and then the next level you get to race again. So when I played it, I actually felt like I had to endure
Yeah.
all these bad levels to actually get to the racing, much like I had to endure season 2 of 3 of Lost.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem with mini games. Is that inevitably one game's more fun than the other. And unless you play like a Mario thing with like really good mini games.
And that's one thing that's like interesting about exploring. Okay, what is it about romance that makes it compelling to interact with from a game sense? And there's so many different things, like conversation and being conflicted and how to interpret someone's actions and trying to figure out what you want and all that crap, like, and all that bullshit. But in love, they're just like, let's take this one thing and let's just do it really well, which I had a lot of appreciation for. Like,
yeah,
I felt a certain amount of schizophrenia with Catherine. I loved the puzzle mechanic. I actually went and tried to play it privately, and I was just as bad as when I streamed.
Yeah, I actually want to just throw in a little bit of oh gosh, this might be a little off topic, but as far as feature creep and why games try too much and stray from their core mechanic, I'm learning. I think it has to do with the way that contracts and budgets happen. Because when you focus on a core mechanic, it actually makes it so that you don't have as many selling points when you're pitching your game. But because if you pitch a sprawling title, you can have a much longer document, and then that can get you more money. But it bites you in the ass.
Yeah, I will say though, Catherine had a really good balance. Like the puzzles were really like intense, and then the sort of whole texting thing I also found really engaging as well.
I totally agree.
Yeah,
I think Catherine. Catherine wasn't my favorite game, but in terms of sort of the idea behind it, what it was trying to do, the approach that it was taking to trying to communicate about relationships, it may have been my favorite sort of idea. I don't think it wasn't. Actually, I think the problem that I had with Catherine is that I couldn't quite relate to it. Like it was talking about things that I had trouble understanding. I didn't like the protagonist. I didn't understand his point of view.
Oh my god, the protagonist was just terrible.
And that's kind of a common theme among some of these games, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's like when you give the protagonist a voice, they tend to be pretty bad. Or even in The Sims 3, like we were controlling our, pseudo Sean, and yet he still ended up being extremely creepy.
Thanks. Yeah.
I mean, there's something about maybe in a dating game, it's very hard to have a protagonist who doesn't come off as a total creep.
Well, okay, so I mean, like, I find that's really juicy, Bill. I find that like a really intriguing nugget. How does other media do it? Is it because you're controlling somebody that makes it creepy, or is any story about a relationship inherently creepy?
I think it's your motives. I think it's the motivation, because it's not accidental. You're going out there, you're going into that game to get the ball rolling. It's like
well, I honestly think that's the real issue is the motivations of the player versus the motivations of the character. That those are never aligned. And I mean, for instance, in books, like I'm reading like the protagonist making bad decisions. I mean, I don't read a lot of romance, but I read a lot of weird sci-fi fantasy stuff. Where romance gets thrown in there.
You don't have to lie, Sean. We know.
I read so much romance. Executive Pregnancy Ultimatum. I was gripped. By the way, have you seen the Harlequin romance titles? Oh my god. Yeah. Executive Pregnancy Ultimatum is a book.
That's amazing.
I mean, if I had my video mixer up, I would just like pull it up on screen, or I could just go to my shelf and get it from the Harlequin romance vault. But like there's that tension when you're reading the main character and you're like, oh my god, he's going to do something wrong. Oh my gosh. Or when you want him to say something sweet to the girl who's perfect for him, and he just won't. You're like, come on! And that's part of the frustration is what makes it engaging. But in the game, it's so hard because part of me wants to do exactly what we did in The Sims 3, which is to try for baby in an elevator on date 2.
Yeah.
Just because I would never try for baby in an elevator, ever. And that's an option. That is one of the actual 3 options in elevator. It's like use elevator, woohoo in elevator, or try for baby in elevator. Like those are
use elevator.
But that's what I found like really interesting about Katawa Shouju, that I would say things, it would give me options, and then I'd be like, ooh, I want to do this one. Here's an edgy one. And my character would actually be like, well, I thought about doing that, but then I didn't. And I was like,
yeah. You know, I gotta say, like, I've become sort of the resident Katawa Shouju expert because that game really took hold. And I've actually played through 3 of the 5 now.
Holy whoa!
It's good. It's pretty good. But what it does break down as a game, because once you do it after you've done the first time, then if you're trying to 100% it, you basically have to just use the diagram.
Right.
Which ends up feeling pretty sad, because then you end up doing stuff. It's like, you know, it's like you got to tell the nurse, like, no, I don't think I'm gonna work out and save my life. It's like, okay, I don't know. It gets pretty weird when you have to make these choices just to like achieve these other goals and stuff.
I think it was interesting that due to the constraints of the show, I mean, we to some extent chose games based on the fact that we were going to be showing them in this fashion.
Yeah.
I mean, I think my favorite depictions of romance in games are usually not the core part of the game. It's a game like a BioWare game where there is a game that you're playing, and the romance is almost ancillary to that. The romance is something that may or may not happen alongside the rest of the game that you're playing, and that can be so much more compelling in some ways, because you don't have this weird player character, you know, misalignment thing that Sean was talking about. You don't have to feel like you're a creep, because your whole purpose in playing the game isn't to pursue the romance.
Right.
I think that there's something fundamental about that you can only kind of do in a game that isn't just about the romance. Sean, you got really excited when I started talking about that. What?
Yeah, well, I actually remember one of like the strongest moments in gaming is going to be a spoiler for Mass Effect 1. It's not a huge one, but you know,
that was a number of years ago.
If you're gonna sob about it, get ready to cry. So there is a female character, Ashley Weaver. Wait, is that her name?
That doesn't sound right.
Names have been changed to protect the Mass Effect.
It is Ashley. It's Ashley something.
Or maybe it's something Ashley. I don't know who Ashley Weaver is, but that name's stuck in my head. Maybe that's a character from I think it's a character from a book I read a while ago. I don't know, whatever. Ashley is her name.
Look that up now.
Yeah, actually, everyone.
Ashley Williams.
Ashley, what? Really?
Williams. Yeah, Ashley Williams. That's definitely it.
Ashley Weaver is on Twitter.
Link. Wow. Be sure to follow Ashley Weaver and Chad Buttbag.
And Model Mayhem. Oh, Sean, you dog.
Is this accidental name of someone I don't know? Is she hot?
Yeah. Don't worry, it's everyone. Everyone on the internet is named Ashley Weaver, actually, it turns out.
All right, well that's relieving. I apologize to all Ashley Weavers out there. It was not my intention. But either way,
sent them.
So Lieutenant Ashley, it was not actually a deep, strong, compelling romance line for me where I was like, oh, dude, I don't even care if I get to the end of the game. I just want to get with Ashley. Like, none of that was going on. It was just sort of, there were times in the game where you had the option to say something encouraging or say something negative. And I would just generally go for the encouraging one. And a lot of the reason was because if you went for the encouraging one, it would improve your Paragon rating. So you could get more options to get good quests, and at the end of the game, you would be a good character. And every time I play a game, almost always a good character. Well, there was one point in the game where there was this. It was the Rachni Queen. It was the last existing specimen of this terrifying species called the Rachni, and you could choose to kill her and wipe out the whole species completely, or to save the Rachni Queen. who claimed that, no, the whole freak out with all the insects killing everyone, that was because we lost our leaders, but I'm the only one left and I won't do it anymore. So I was going to save the queen because I just completely thought that, well, I may as well just go for the Paragon rating, right? But Ashley was like, don't you dare let that queen live. You have to kill her. And I remember being really strongly torn. And it was such an interesting moment because it wasn't actually a deep emotional investment in the character Ashley, or a real deep desire to have it work out with this digital character, but it was that I wanted that to happen, but I also wanted to increase my Paragon rating. So it's like the game mechanic versus the game storyline element being developed. And I actually remember just sitting there and spinning my thumbstick around and going, ooh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I definitely had moments like that too.
And that was cool for me. I was like, oh, feelings. Like, it's interesting the way that the biggest motivation of it was this Paragon rating.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think was like so clever. It didn't really directly deal with it or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of interesting. Yeah,
I actually, I mean, so obviously I can't speak for your experience, Sean, but in my experience, I find that I do develop an emotional connection with a character that I think is actually stronger than if I am setting out to develop some kind of a connection with them. Like, if the goal of the game, or my goal when I go into the game, is to develop some kind of relationship with Ashley or a character or whatever, then I think about it as a quest. I think about it as a goal. I'm very goal oriented, and so it's hard for me to empathize with that character in a meaningful way. Whereas if the character is just sort of a character in the story, over the course of the story, I might sort of find that I like them. I like what they're saying. They reinforce me. And I'll develop more of an anchor to that, and more of an emotional sort of connection when I have to disagree with them or something, like in your example,
mm-hmm.
than if it's like something that I'm explicitly going after.
Oh, I know what bugs me though a little bit is that's such a thing that's obviously set up by the game designers, where it's a situation where it's like, are you gonna listen to the woman you love, or are you gonna save the species? And it's just kind of like, it feels manipulative to me, you know what I mean? And I haven't played the game, so I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe it comes off really well. Like, maybe they pull it off. But plot-wise, it just seems like, well, of course they're going to make you choose. Like,
yeah, I mean, you're right. Nothing that you're saying is wrong, Bill. It works.
Never, Bill.
It works better. It works better for me.
I'm infallible.
It works better for me because, for example, I have never been in that situation in the game. I've played through the game like 3 or 4 times.
Oh, I thought you were going to say like in real life.
No. I mean, there is an emergent quality to it that you have to have a certain relationship with her, and you have to have her in your party at that particular moment, or it just doesn't happen.
Okay.
Which, doesn't mean that it isn't manipulative. It's very much manipulative.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not like you're not being led into it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not railroaded into it.
I definitely think that is the biggest deficiency with a lot of these games, where they're trying to explore. I mean, the basis of a relationship is you dating a girl, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
For
someone.
For us at least, yeah.
Whom you will. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's like you dating a person. So we're going to create a person that you're supposed to date and go for it. And it's just kind of hard to be forced into that. So that's why I always had the urge to bend with the system. And in fact, what was the biggest game-breaking moment for you? Because I almost feel like Sims 3 was interesting because it just started off broken.
And it just got
no.
Better
it was super broken the whole time, and
yeah.
and the fact that it started off broken, as you say, Sean, forced us to come to terms with its brokenness really early.
Yeah,
and then we could have fun with it.
I have that theory that The Sims 3 is kind of a parody of itself. it's like I've tried it. I tried it. Like after we played it on MetaDating, I tried making my own guy, and I ended up like I was just his MO was to get a woman and to start a family because I wanted to like see if I could populate a house. So it's like meet woman at the gym, hit it off, whatever. It turns out she's super rich, has a mansion where 5 people live, including her like other boyfriend, because apparently I'm cheating with her, but I don't realize this until I've stayed there for 2 nights, and the guy just ends up and there's just this guy who's really irritated at me, and I don't know why, and like finally through the menu system I realized that like he's her previous boyfriend. And it's like amazing. Just he like kicks me out of the bathtub and like.
I'm sorry, Bill. Are you describing the game, or did this really happen to you? Because it sounds like something that would really happen to you.
Dude,
I'm not going to spoil it. I won't tell you what's wrong. Try to guess.
I love the idea of Bill, the humble game designer, gets drawn in by an actual mansion. It's like, well, I'll just snuggle up and stay in the guest wing.
Oh, God.
It was pretty amazing. Yeah, it was like that game is always just an amazing crash and burn.
Yeah.
Oh man, so that was pretty fun. Let's see, what else was game breaking? Facade was also, that was like robo people.
Facade is actually again, Facade is one of the ones that I appreciate the most. Although in its construction, it's very limited, right?
It's at least polite about when it breaks. It's yeah.
Yeah, just you say melons and you get kicked
Yeah, that's
out.
right.
Right.
And by the way, we're going to be making a lot of references throughout the show to our old episodes, so
which you might want
to watch all of because they're really on point.
Definitely, all of them.
Yeah, it's I recommend this show is kind of this is like the graduation episode, so you might want to take the course first. I love that we can bill this as like an e-university course. Just download it on your Apple device. No, but what I'm thinking is the visual novels don't really break because there's hardly any system to them as is. There's system, but there's hardly any choices. They're very limited. They do break in that if you play them again, you are going to want to use the skip mode, which skips the content you've already seen, which kind of kills some of the flow between, there's that whole, gosh, I can't remember, I can't remember which film teacher it was who said that it's like the beginning, or the previous scene, the current scene, and the scene after thing is what contributes to like the viewer's experience. So if you're skipping scenes, you're skipping scenes, even if you've read them before, it's going to change your experience. And also, as I said, when you're going by the roadmap, it breaks.
I'm gonna argue that there is something a little game breaking about the visual novels, and that's that the emphasis is so hard on the plot and the writing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not always great.
Mm-hmm.
Even so, mostly Hatoful, and Hatoful was tough for us because it's a parody. It's in many ways, I think, a joke.
And it was the first time we had ever done a show together, and we're like,
we had no idea what was going on.
By the way, after playing more Katawa, also it's really funny. Like you look back at Hatoful Boyfriend, and just like the fact that there's like the festival where you sort of get glued to your partner. I don't know. There's a lot of funny tropes in there.
But even Katawa, so I would say, having like looked back on this and thought about it, and I do want to play more of Katawa. I haven't played much since our episode. But it is fantastic writing for a visual novel. It is pretty subpar for anything else that I would ever read.
Yep.
And since it focuses so heavily on the reading experience, I can't help but feel like I could be reading something else and I would be getting more out of it.
Well, I think you'd better step up then and make a visual novel.
Well, I mean,
that's fair.
I honestly feel like, okay, so in my eyes, the best experience of interactive storytelling by a significant margin that I have ever seen is the Walking Dead games by Telltale.
Wow.
Have you played them, Bill?
Oh, those are by Telltale? I didn't know that. Everyone's always like, Bill, you got to play those. I haven't played them yet.
Bill, you got to play them.
Okay.
Dude, I mean,
don't spoil them, Sean. But
don't spoil them. Just effuse on them.
Effuse?
Effuse, like when things come out of you. Effuse. I don't know. There's some.
Is that the definition of that word? Dude, I got on the roller coaster and effused my lunch all over the person next to me. Brutal.
Oh god.
Anyways, okay, so a huge problem that I think has always existed with narrative in games is that you don't get any feedback. So I'm going to take Diablo 3 for a moment, which has just feedback through the roof, where like when I remember I was like a level 2 witch doctor and I stabbed a guy with a knife because for some reason I wasn't using my mana. I don't know, I'm bad. But I stabbed the guy and what did I do? The input was one click. I just clicked on the guy. And my character does this like dramatic comic book-esque animation and hits the guy. The sound is this deeply rewarding crunch. And the skeleton just like split into a bunch of bones and like fell apart, and there was like the loot hitting the ground, and it's instantaneous. It's like, bam, you just killed that guy, right? But in most narrative, like I'll take the Mass Effect example, where I eventually chose to save the Rachni Queen, and
screw Ashley.
Yeah, Ashley was just such a jerk about it, but she can't run me. Like she But she was upset about it. But it's like I don't quite know the effect of that. Many games kind of have this thing where it's like, do you want to save Johnny or Molly? And then you save Johnny, and 3 hours later, Molly's like, well, I'm not going to save you because you didn't save me 3 hours ago. And you're like, I didn't know that. It's really hard to like get a sense of that really strongly. And then Walking Dead games, it does a brilliant job of that. Where someone, I remember very early on, someone says, "Are you that girl's father?" And your option is like, yes, I was her babysitter, or no, I'm just some guy. And, the truthful answer is no, I'm just some guy. But, I remember I said that I was her babysitter.
Yeah.
And it instantly said, Jared will remember that. It just showed it at the top of the screen. Oh. And even though there was no external demonstrated effect in the game right there, I instantly felt the punch here. I was like, oh my gosh. And I feel like that's something that I really want to see and experience more in... I think the romance genre is really ripe for a lot of those situations.
Totally.
Where I think the one thing that everyone always experiences in real life is, especially when I was young, I would want to impress a girl I had a crush on. So when I was in 6th grade, I remember that...
This is going to be good.
The way that I would impress people was by sharing facts. Obscure facts in particular. The more obscure, the better. If I shared some fact about, I don't know, sports, that's fine. Everyone knows about sports ball. But I was like, did you know a tree sloth can move an average of 6 feet per minute? And then I would stop to let that shit sink in. You know what I'm saying? to really let the honeys stew on the brain power of the young Day 9. Like the end.
I hope you did the sloth then. Do you know about the sloth?
What?
The sloth?
What about the sloth?
It's like a move. I think I might not be remembering this properly, but it's like you just reach out and touch someone's face, but you do it like really slowly.
Like how slowly? Like a real
just like
sloth?
as slowly as you can, I think. Yeah.
Slowly approaching like that?
Yeah.
Well, okay, because or I'm sure everyone's experienced the thing where you try to say a joke and it falls flat because you're anxious. And in a game, I would love it if it was like, Jenny thinks you just made an ass of yourself, and you're just like, oh my god. I like those external notes because those reflect the internal monologues that everyone ends up having. I just think the Walking Dead dialogue structure is so brilliant that it's like perfect for these sort of like emotion-filled romantic interactions.
I agree 100%. I think, I mean, that's really the sort of decisive innovation of that game. That's what makes that game work as well as it does. I think, I mean, what I'm hoping is that this becomes a trope, right? That this now that we've seen that this is such an effective thing, this is something that everybody starts to use, because I think that we can easily push beyond it. Right now, it's the system telling you what the system is doing in a very, objective, clinical kind of a way, very systematic. It's instructing you as to exactly what's happening behind the scenes. I think it'd be much more interesting in, Sean, your example, where instead of telling you what the system is doing, if that was your inner monologue, and it's telling you what you think the system is doing, what the character sort of imagines is happening. I think it could give you the same kind of feedback that you want, that sort of gives you a rush right then. But at the same time, you're not necessarily beholden to it.
Man, I just had a really crazy idea. What if, and this is just straight up sort of telling the system sort of thing, but what if your character was like a haberdasher, or like a...
What's a haberdasher?
It's a hat man.
Yeah.
It's a hat peddler.
I freaked out. What is that?
What if you have hats, right? And you have all these hats, and whenever you tell something to another character, you give them a hat. And the hat you give them is based on what you told them, and then they wear that hat for the rest of the game.
This isn't Team Fortress 2, is it?
This is a business model.
No, you know what? Bill, let's explore this. So you're a haberdasher, and so for instance, let's say, Bill, that you're the haberdasher, and you are just uncontrollably, hopelessly in love with me.
Yes.
You think that I'm so beautiful that my large liquid eyes stare straight to your heartstrings and pluck them tenderly.
Large liquid eyes. Good Lord. Yes, okay, so your liquid eyeballs are plugging my heartstrings, or plucking...
So let's just say that's going down. So you say something like, like, Sean, I don't know if you like ping pong, but I have some spare ping pong balls if you ever need one. And then like a hat would like fall on my head.
Yeah, like I'd hand you the hat while I said that to you.
And you'd hand me something that's like, Sean is grateful, or
Or not necessarily like explicit like that. It's just like say that you see someone's cat run away. And they come up to you and say, which way did the cat go? And you can either point them in the right way or the wrong way. If you point them in the right way, you hand them like a captain's hat. And if you point them in the wrong way, you hand them like that mayor's hat you've got there. But so it's like meaningless. The only meaning behind the hats is that A, you're a haberdasher. That's the trope. Or that's the
hook. That's the hook.
That's the
Bill. That's how we're gonna sell the game. We're gonna put on the back of the box. You are a haberdasher.
You're the haberdasher. Experience haberdashery.
You're a haberdasher. So yeah, you're a haberdasher. But then, so it shows you for the rest of the game. Whenever you look at that character, you know that you have to see that you either pointed them in the right direction or the wrong direction.
Is that the only interaction you get to have with them?
No. Because later they'll like come back, and that's the thing. It always bites you in the butt.
But do you give them a second hat then?
Yeah, it'll go on top of the previous one.
It's okay. So
it's hat stacking.
Hat stacking.
Actually, that'd be a pretty good board game for like small children.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think this might be a tangent. Tangent alert.
No. This is good because one of the things that I wanted to discuss today was our game design ideas. Hopefully, a little bit ridiculous. Maybe serious. I think the Walking Dead comment that I made earlier, I actually genuinely feel that I would love to see that sort of thing. But I think that the haberdashery is excellent because I first of all think that the idea of having sort of a visual tag on how you have behaved towards people. It's like it's really easy. There's really strong, good visual tagging that games do, such as the basic BioShock thing, where interactable objects glisten gold in a really dark paleted world, like that's cool. And if it was just varying hat designs and I had a hat key, yeah. And I think secondly and more importantly, I learned that haberdashing is actually a trope, which means that it is a widely explored theme. If I want to write a story, I can write a traditional murder investigation story, a star-crossed romance, or a haberdasher because people know so much about...
It's a genre.
It's a genre.
With its own language.
I will say, I was researching because one of my favorite manga is a series called Claymore, and I was trying to research what are some manga similar to Claymore, and there's like genres of manga and anime that I've never heard of, like mecha.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't hear about that anywhere else. It's just like the mecha genre, and I do believe that the haberdasher checkbox on Netflix would be cool. The visually striking haberdasher flick, the dark fantasy haberdashing.
Let's move on. Haberdasher slasher.
I think we're gonna move a lot of units to wannabe haberdashers. That's all I gotta say.
Everyone's just gonna think about how they want an extra hat, and they're gonna go visit Lids. Buy one. Lids.
That's the name of the game.
No, that's actually a real thing. I was in a mall.
It really honestly is.
It honestly is a store where you buy, and it's named Lids. Dude, do you want to get a hat? I'm gonna go check out Lids.
Yeah, we'll get some shoes and cakes.
Oh, all right.
We're gonna hot dog at beefs.
Okay. There's two questions I wanted to ask, and I'm gonna ask the first one first. Notice that everything I said is basically vacuous air filler time. I'm trying to
vacuous air filler. Get yours today.
Vacuous air filler. Oh, the first question is, if there was a game that was centrally focused on the idea of romantic relationships.
Go on.
I shall, because if I don't, I'll just... that would be weird. Sean, Day 9 Plot, host of MetaDating, stops hosting mid-show.
Dead! He died like he lived.
Okay, so the... Damn it, Bill. Stop. Stop it, Bill.
Cancel the show. Oh, wait.
Okay, so a lot of the BioWare games kind of have, like in Mass Effect, there's this central drama, and sort of along the sidelines are these romantic subplots. But let's say it was a game centrally focused on romantic relationships, and it was a AAA title. What would it be like? AAA, like $60 million budget.
It'd be bad. It'd be real bad. Are you talking about what we think if other people made it, or if we made it? If we were put in that captain's chair?
No, if you say it would be bad, so bad, please go on.
Okay, well, it would have all the AAA features. Like, it would use the new PlayStation sharing button. It would have achievements. It would be, if it's mobile, well, it wouldn't be mobile if it's AAA, but it still might somehow tie into Facebook, assuming that your console supports that. It
would use both thumbsticks.
Both thumbsticks. It would use all the buttons. It'd use all the buttons.
All the buttons, and you have to be really good at manipulating the controller.
Yes.
And in fact, it's played. 96% of people who play are male, and of the people who don't play, when you say, "Why don't you play that amazing AAA romance game?" they'll be like, "Well, the controls are so hard. Like when I want to kiss her, I can't aim because there's like two thumbsticks. You're trying to,
right.
I'm trying to like move my character and like tilt the neck of my character to like move in, and I try to kiss, but then I just switch weapons because I couldn't.
That's
remember.
Right. Everyone would be bump mapped too. That's the other thing. Everyone would have like pockmarked pores. They'd be like cratery looking. It'd be like Arkham Asylum. Oh, and another thing. Speaking of Arkham City or Arkham Asylum, the women would be completely anti-gravity based. They would be. There'd be jiggle physics. It'd be Corset City, man. It'd be pretty bad. So that being said, though, I mean, what what would you what would say that you had to appease that entire set of features? How would you design this game?
Can we not?
We can try, but this is the opportunity of a lifetime.
I mean, never again will I ask this question in a public venue. I mean, do you want to take a crack at the AAA game question?
Well, I think Bill is identifying something that's sort of fundamentally an issue with that. Is that the AAA isn't just a matter of production value; it's also a matter of marketability.
And it's complete sprawl. It's basically feature sprawl.
It's I'm gonna say scope, but that's exactly. It's a measure of something that I don't think you could capture what we're trying to do. I mean, our favorite game, all of us, our favorite game was like the smallest game.
Just you two.
Yeah, I don't care about you, Bill.
We three represent a perfect sampling of the population.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's another good point. Is that we reflect all opinions here?
Dude, actually, I just want to say another game design note. It was a harsh reality that I woke up to after USC when I realized that that's not the case. In fact, the people that I know who are designers are not actually that much like the people who play and buy most games, because when you get in the indie scene, it's kind of like incestuous. Like you all like the same thing and buy each other's games, and
you all wear plaid shirts and your glasses get thicker year after year. You have some stylish facial hair that changes every few months, and
that's right, exactly. But like the bread and butter of the AAA is it's the young ones, the young men at the consoles, with the headsets and frat boys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me slightly change the question then, because I think that is fair to say that like the AAA title has like a really particular demographic. Largely male, largely in the young teen to early 20s range. The people with disposable income who have a lot of adrenaline and the need to conquer. Where in the Crusade you'd actually go kill and conquer, but in modern day you just get a headset and yell at your teammates. But let's say instead of I don't know, that's just me getting upset whenever I try to play one of those games. Like, why is everyone so angry? It's fine if we all died. There's no permanence to it. It's kind of fun to die, right? When I scratch in bowling, I don't get upset that much, right? It's recreationally upsetting. I'm not going to go eight bonkers. But...
Recreationally upsetting. I think that's the takeaway from this episode.
Yeah, right? Phrase. Like, I enjoy losing at games that I'm not particularly good at. I actually love... I once bet like $500 on a bowling game.
Whoa.
Where the winning score was an 83, and I had like a 45. It was so fun. And it was really good. Listen, I'm degenerate. Let me move on. Let me change it from AAA to what if there was a really extensive budget and it was the freedom to do anything. In Facade, a real issue.
Do whatever you want.
Yeah, in Facade, Facade was made by certainly under 5 people, right?
It was an academic project.
It was an academic project. It was probably a handful of grad students and possibly Michael Matthias coding a ton himself. Yeah,
I'll just say by a handful of people.
Sure.
And so it had...
we can look it up. I'll look it up.
Yeah, it had these... The internet knows, right? Yeah. Well, it almost had these clear vulnerabilities to it. Yeah. Where, for instance, if you said the word melons at all... the 2 people would kick you out of the house. Why? Because they took a dictionary of synonyms of inappropriate words, and anytime you said something, it would search that dictionary and just lob you out. Like, if you just walked in there and said, penis, 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 they'd be like, hey, you need to leave, which is a completely understandable thing. But if you said, dude, do you have any watermelon? And they're like, I need you to leave. It broke it, right? And a lot of that is just not enough manpower and not enough QA testing. But let's fantasize for a moment. The script can be as big as you want. The scope can be as big as you want. The production values can be as high as you want. What do you think would be missing? What do you think would make a really compelling experience?
I think there has to be an element of emergence. Basically, what I want is something crossed between Facade and Sims.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I want an emergent system that's based on agents that aren't entirely predictable, that is focused on conversation and the idea of getting to know one another. Because to me, basically, I want a game where I play. You're at a bar, right? You're at like a crowded bar where there's a bunch of people, and everybody's trying to get to know one another, or a party. And you go into a party, you don't know anybody there, and the game is basically people coming up to you, you going up to people, initiating conversations, getting to know them, and deciding whether or not you want to continue pursuing conversation. I think that could be really interesting. And then if it played out over the course of like several consecutive parties, and you could like look for the same people and continue talking with them, or you could seek out new people. Sometimes the people that you want to talk to aren't there, and so you have to find other people to talk to, and maybe you like them better. I think there's something really interesting in the idea of human interaction is not based on like leveling up a relationship. Human interaction is a pinball machine. It's people colliding with other people in a really very dense, very personal, sometimes very violent way. And you collide with a lot more people than you actually stick to.
Yeah, it depends on what you're driving.
Bill, you're driving a pinball in this analogy, all right?
Sorry. Okay.
You're driving a ball, and it's silver.
That was a joke.
Conversational bumper cars is what
that was a joke that drew nothing but enmity.
It really did.
But I will say,
I like you less now, Bill.
What I will say though, Sean, I disagree that it's like pinball. I think it's more like waves on the beach. I think it's more like because here's my fear. Do you want to know my theory of friendship?
I do.
Bill,
okay. I wondered for a while how people became friends, and I could never remember becoming friends with someone. But I've narrowed it down to it's a continual process of having conversations where each conversation, it's basically like World War I. Each conversation's a trench, and you slowly move your trenches forward. But in this case, you're not moving forward to attack each other, you're moving forward just to be friends. So the way that you open up to other people is a little bit at a time. So it's actually more like poker. Like you're betting a little bit. You know, you say something that's a little bit embarrassing given the current state of things, and if they accept that, then you move a little bit more forward so that now your overlap is a little bit more. And that, I think, is how people become closer friends and open up more, is very slowly. And in the context of a relationship, in the fictional world, you know, you have tough conversations and then that's it. You do it once and it's over and you've solved it. But I think in the real world, it's like someone will be like, you know, I want to get a dog, and his wife is like, I don't like dogs. And then they're like, I really want a dog. It's like, I don't know about getting a dog. It's like, I kind of, you know, I'm thinking about dogs. It's like, yeah, you know, I've been thinking about dogs too. And then it's like there's a compromise that previously seemed unreachable that just happens because, like layers of paint, you have the same conversation over and over, and your part of your brain just kind of like wants to compromise. So it's like you sort of subconsciously start compromising. I've seen that happen with people who got married who had different ideas about kids, religion. I mean, it's really weird. Like, you see people who seem on paper incompatible, and they just sort of, you know, it just erodes away over time. So what I'm saying is you can make a dating game in a wave pool.
But I want to get deeper into the wave pool, because I don't see the wave pool yet.
Okay, so the wave pool is just the wave pool might be a worse analogy than if two people each had buckets of paint. They had to paint on the same canvas, but one person's paint was like purple and the other person's paint was like yellow, and they have to paint over each other's paint, and they end up with some kind of what color would that be? It wouldn't be a good color.
You chose the
Brown.
two most difficult colors. It would be mud. It would be just mud.
But okay, so you're describing something that's very abstract.
Yeah, I can try and.
But at the same time, like I really like that comment about the sort of like being in the trenches and slowly sort of moving towards each other, because that's one thing that I feel like is missing in a lot of like the sort of procedurally generated or the attempts at procedurally generated dialogue in games. For the most part, it's just prescripted, and that's it, and you just have the choices.
If the Sims were more to make the Sims more realistic, you could have it. You could angle it so that you only progress a little bit in the relationship each day. Like there's a day limit. So you go to work every day. You see the same person for like 2 months, and then maybe you start dating. Although on the other hand, you can also pick people up. Like people do pick people up at bars and stuff. But I'm talking about like actually getting to know people. I mean, it takes time, and it takes like repetition. It takes routine. That's what it takes. Routine.
Yeah. So well, and that's the strength. Sorry, I don't mean to keep cutting you off, Sean, but
oh no, that's fine. No, you guys are more interesting than I am. I'm not gonna lie. There's like a point I wanted to make like 10 minutes ago, and it's not that great. It's gonna be really shitty when I make it. But go ahead, Sean. I'm really excited.
I think that's where the BioWare style games come in. That's where the games that sort of what BioWare does is they basically say you can only have so much conversation at a time. And then you have to go back and play the rest of the game. You can't have all of the conversation all at once because you're going to ask questions that the other person is unwilling to answer. And so it gives you this sense of moving the trenches closer together because it has to happen. It unfolds over time. And it feels like time because you're doing the bulk of the game in between each conversation.
Dude, I noticed that too with Katawa, actually. There's so much, and you mentioned this about the writing. 90% of that game is boring. 90% of it is a character doing boring things and thinking to himself about how boring it is. And that makes the moments where you're actually pursuing the relationship even better. And I was thinking, like, that's why you keep going back to the classroom and then the library and then his room, and you wake up, and it's like they establish this dull routine, and then the contrast is really striking. So I guess if I were handed infinite amounts of money, I would say to my team, guys, let's make something really dull. No, okay.
It's going to be on the back of the back.
No, that's not true. That's not exactly it. But what I might do... Exactly. The haberdasher, you have to open and close it every day. Make hats. Making the hats is the slow part. No, but what I might say is let's make it like a mobile game where, and people hate me for this, but where you can only play it a little bit each day, and it occurs in real time, and it's somehow overlaid onto your life so that your life can be the boring part.
Yeah, but I mean... Okay, so that's interesting, but take that and make it not Tamagotchi Girlfriend.
Dude, I've been trying to make a Tamagotchi game for so long.
Okay, I'm gonna step in because I'm.
Please do, Sean. Please save us from ourselves.
What I'm gonna say is gonna become increasingly irrelevant as time goes on. And that's why I feel like the first-person shooter genre has gone in a different direction. I'm gonna be like. About decision making and what we were talking about like 30 minutes ago. Remember The Sims 3? Like, okay, so Sean, I like what you were saying about you go to this party every night and you have this sort of generative dialogue. I honestly like games that distill down interactions to like really compact sort of things. Like in real life, you might have a conversation with someone for 2 hours at a party. Mm-hmm. But in a game, you can probably boil that conversation down to 10 minutes and introduce maybe 20 or 30 decisions in that period. Mm-hmm. Where, she says something and then you think, okay, here are my options. What do I want to say? And because you're creating these sorts of options, it sort of ups the intensity of it a little bit. So I'm just going to assume that that's true if I had infinite money. But I like the idea of kind of like we did at The Sims where we woke up and said, where do we want to go? Do we want to go to the club? To the gym, to the art museum? Do we want to go to the park and try to talk to a celebrity who's playing for 3 kids on a swing? Like that sort of thing. I think that could be really interesting, where when the night ends, you just sort of go to bed, or the screen fades to black, and then it comes back after work, and it's like, okay, and what do you want to do now? Kind of like with Sims, all that during work period, we were unemployed. But during that period, basically, we had Sean eat and make his bed and shower himself and poo, and that actually took like 6 in-game hours to do, because I guess Sean doesn't eat a lot of fruit in the game. But
yeah, it's like he's like a predator. He feeds once.
Yeah, right. He gorges himself and then goes out to find a mate. And that's what I actually think, that if you just cut out all that sort of intermediary, I'm just addressing the system sort of part, and then make the dialogue like that much more engaging, I think that can be really interesting. And you can have I just still love that moment so much in Katwa Shoujo, where it was, let's ask her about, her, wasn't it ask her about her disability? Ask her about deafness, right? And it's like, well, I wanted to do that, but I knew I couldn't.
I know.
And that was the choice that we as the players made. And I think that is so apt for like the conversational dialogues. Like if I'm coming up to a digital person in the bar and we're talking, and then 3 minutes into talking, it's like, talk about, tell an interesting joke, or talk about your job as an engineer, or ask her about her day. And you choose like tell an interesting joke, and then your character tells a really bad joke. That I cannot count the number of times that happens where I'm like, I'm going to tell this really awesome story.
Yeah.
And then it comes out wrong. Especially, sometimes I'll have a bad day, and I'll think, oh, dude, I'm going to tell this story of my bad day, and it's going to be funny. And then it comes out of my mouth, and it just sounds awful and heinous. And and by the end of the story, I'm like, and I'm just mad, right? And she's like, oh my God, Shawnee's a crazy person. But I think that's interesting to give the motivations to the player and to have them try to nudge the character, because I actually feel like that's similar to how a lot of interactions work, where you have your internal motivations and you're trying to nudge the situation along.
I have a game design proposition then. It's a game called I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, you don't have to name it first.
You tell us the idea and we'll name it.
Oh, that's good. You go to work. It's scoped down to you're trying to build a relationship with this other character. There's 2 characters in this game. Well, there might be more, but you don't interact with them too much. You work next to this person. Every day, you get to choose, like, twice. You get to choose 2 things to say or do. And if you overstep your bounds, it's weird. If you don't overstep enough, you won't get to know them very well. And after you make those 2 choices, the conversation's over, and then and then the sun sets, comes up again. It's the next day.
Bill, I mean, okay, so
Bill, that idea. Oh no, Bill.
Jesus, Bill, what are you doing?
Bill,
no. I mean,
funding.
I think it's interesting. I think that to make it work, you would need like some kind of a
pixel art,
a side story that's going on, that's progressing every day, so that you can sort of mark time by it. I think you could really do something interesting with that. But the problem that I have with it is that it's a game. It starts with this assumption that there's one other person in the world, and your goal is to develop a relationship with them.
But she's the one, Sean.
That's what's so fundamentally broken about it. I mean, like,
I know, but that's due to budgetary constraints. It's because this is a prototype. It'll go multiplayer later. It'll be called AOL Chat, circa 1994.
Actually, I don't think that's an off point to bring up either. Chat rooms are a really interesting analog because in a chat room, and like one of the great wonderful benefits to just gaming as a medium is, think about something that you would not want to do in real life. that due to various circumstances, like the Uncharted games, I don't really want to go on crazy quests to find lost treasure. I really don't, but I love the fantasy of going through that. So cool. And that's one thing that's nice about what a lot of people enjoyed about those early chat rooms is that you had that anonymity. People, it's very scary initially to go to a bar and you don't know anyone and you're sitting there and you're like, well, maybe can I go talk to someone? You're trying to think of like what to say. There's someone you want to go talk to.
But if it's the Red Dragon Inn.
Yeah, if it's Red Dragon Inn, aka ICQ number 4894831, then yeah, you get in there and you're like, hey guys, what's up? I'm a painter, and then people just start saying stuff, and it gives you that courage, and I feel like plopping a player into that situation where it's like, hey, here you go, here's some courage, dude, go for it. Like
I used to when I was in like grade school, like late grade, like middle high, junior high. Dude, where am I from? I was in like junior high. That was like the heyday of like AOL. And I used to go to the Red Dragon chat room, and the Red Dragon Inn, that was the like official like Dungeons and Dragons chat room, where it was like half role play, half not. And this is when it was like you had to pay for your like hours of like internet or whatever, and but you kept getting free stuff. But then so it'd just be like me on this phone line. But because I wanted to be really cool, I would pretend to be this character who was like super like Aragorn, So just it'd be like sits in the back in the dark and waits, and nothing would ever happen.
That's amazing.
This episode is everything I ever hoped for and more. Oh my god, that is so funny.
So I feel like we need to build the potential for that emergent behavior into our game.
This complete failure to engage.
Yeah.
Total 100% wallflower behavior.
Oh, God.
You'll notice, I think,
that's funny.
Yeah, it's.
Oh God. Okay. Let us make a mockery of everything we have built now.
Okay.
What I want to take the time to do, there's other sort of discussion topics and prompts that we have available, but we asked our wonderful, inspired viewer base.
Oh, I like this part.
To contribute potential ideas for games that we could discuss on air, and in particular, guys, I think we want to try to flesh these out.
Yeah.
And explore the implications and what the development will be like of these games. And I wanted to once again emphasize something we emphasized in episode 7, that by sharing these, we didn't want anyone to submit something that was like dear to their heart. A lot of people have game design ideas that they're really proud of, that they do want to work on one day, and by saying these, we wouldn't want anyone to feel ripped off and that sort of thing. Yeah. And in fact, I think it's quite... Bring this up because there's been some funny experiences that I think many have had. For instance, when I started the original show that I began doing live broadcasting in was the Day 9 Daily, where we talk about StarCraft 2 strategy every day, 5 days a week. And someone contacted me about 60 or 70 episodes in, when it was starting to actually pick up some traction and doing well, and said, you stole my idea, but I understand that you're very reasonable, so let me know the best way for you to transfer me 50% ownership of the show. I actually received like a double-digit number of people who did that.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, of people who are just like, no, I thought up of the idea of having a web strategy show. And you stole it. And I'm like, I'm just talking. What? I basically was like, what? I had no other reaction to it. So, you know, I just wanted to throw that out there. So if any of you did that, sent me something that was dear to your heart.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know why you did that.
I want to say also, and this is a good thing with ideas in general. Even if you and someone else come up with the same idea and build it the same way, maybe you even heard about it from the other person, it's going to be totally different.
Yes. Let me just note, ideas are dime a dozen, which a lot of times sounds like, oh, your ideas are so bad because I can get 11 more and your idea for $1. Like, I'm not...
I have $1.
I have $1, which means that I have 120 ideas, including yours, so it's not that, right?
Right.
Honestly, I think what you're saying, Bill, is like totally accurate. I remember I was in this class, this electronic music class, where
I've heard about this class before.
Yeah, it is rife with rad stories. Yeah, I must say, I'm thinking about all those. I'm like, oh my god. But I remember for this one project, I just said, I'm going to literally try to recreate this exact song, and I wound up with something completely different. So if you have an idea, and feel free to share it with people, because no matter what you do, it'll always turn out unique to you.
That's right.
So let me give a special shout out to Davin P. I don't want to say his full name because I don't know if he wants that sort of notoriety. We've already betrayed Ashley Weaver, whoever she is, on the show. Davin P. submitted several ideas a day, or several ideas a week, about every day, and I want to talk about his idea called "My Ghoul Friend."
God, yes.
The tagline is "The love that will not die." You have fallen in love with a beautiful guy/gal, but unfortunately, he or she is the apparent heir of an infamous crime family. Your beloved, as well as the rest of her family, are massacred in a mafia power play. The one thing you were able to save was her head. Unfortunately, you have mad medical/voodoo skills, with a Z, and were able to stabilize her condition. You have sworn vengeance on the other mobs and intend to harvest body parts from them to rebuild your fiance's body. You're on the clock as the head begins necrotizing. Can you dodge the police and gunfire of the mob to save your sweetheart before time runs out? And this was sent from his iPhone because apparently he was in line. I guess maybe he had a headache and he was just getting some Advil from the store. The line was long because, you know, late night pharmacies only have like one counter open, and he's just like, oh, and sent it to the MetaDating show.
Yeah. Oh man.
So, you know, I like this. I like the idea that how would we design this game if this was made? What would be the goal of it?
Well, I would say that there's a girlfriend screen with just a head at first.
So it's kind of like, for instance, a Diablo 3 inventory where you can sports bucklers.
And she has a phone sitting next to her on the table, and she can talk to you in a voiceover. So she's also like the tutorial person.
Yeah, that would be so great.
She's the angel on the shoulder, right? She's Cortana.
Yeah,
she's Navi.
She's Oracle for Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's like the Colonel from Metal Gear Solid.
Thank you,
Snake, Colonel. To pick up a limb so I can interact with you, press the action button.
I love this idea because it implies so many things. It implies gameplay. I mean, he says, you know, dodge the bullets. Blah, blah. There's action there. It implies it's got a narrative that gives you a revenge story to motivate it.
Absolutely.
And it's just, you know, it's justice. It's fair that you should kill them and take all their limbs because that's what they took from your girlfriend.
I have a problem with the role that it puts her in, though. I mean,
yes.
in your depiction of it, at least, is that she's entirely passive.
Yes. Well, this is, I gotta say, part of what I like about it is the perversion of the actual relationship, because you are literally bringing back pieces of women to staple together in this kind of it's like a direct response to, you know, a lot of feminist critique. It's terrible.
You're literally just picking the parts you want and making the perfect woman.
Well, I mean,
it's extremely offensive. But I think if they embrace that, if the game design embraces that,
what if we wanted to drift away from the offensive part? Because I will agree that one thing that bothers me quite a bit about a lot of games is just the ridiculous over-sexualization of women in a way that's unnecessary. Instead of wearing like a bulletproof vest, she wears a bulletproof everything, but it's unzipped down to the navel to show little cleavage because everyone knows no one aims for the heart with a gun. Like it doesn't make any sense, and it's bothersome. But at the same time, I think we can extend this a little bit to where, let's say it's a trade-off sort of thing. You can only get a limited number of body parts in the time, and you have to choose.
You have like a shoulder bag.
Yeah, and you know it's completely non-sexualized, right? We don't want any of that, right? Like,
obviously,
but it's something like where you can get her a leg and another leg, or an arm and a leg, and like.
I would say, come on.
Come on, be reasonable about this ghoul game. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get unreasonable.
Wait, Sean, is this a strategic decision? Is this an interesting choice between, like, do you want your girlfriend to have 2 legs, or should she also have an arm?
Well, I mean, I don't want to say specifically girlfriend. Could be girlfriend or boyfriend. Obviously, it would work for both. But you know, let's say you're piecing together your boyfriend. Maybe you give him an arm and a leg, and then afterwards you can only go to like the outside of a club where he could smoke and lean.
No. She's a girl. It's a girl, and her name's Eileen. No, here's the thing. Hey, Sean, it's a guy. It's a guy, but guess what nationality he is?
What?
Pole. It's not even funny. Okay, look. No, but here's what I would say. It's a character arc. We start with or not a character. Wait a minute. It's like, okay, Katua does this too. It's a game made by 4chan people. Based on this picture that spawned a lot of really smutty stuff. And then you play the game, and you're tricked into having a lot of feelings, because the game is not actually that smutty. So we can do the same thing, where it's sort of a B-movie, it's a B-movie concept, but in the game, we play it straight, and we play it really heartfelt. And then you get
okay. So the problem that I have, Bill, isn't. I mean, yes, there's a problem with the idea that she's your girlfriend and she's just a head and she's totally passive in the game and you're just trying to like find her body parts. That's a huge problem. But there's also a problem in that, regardless if it's a girlfriend or a boyfriend or like any of the gender politics, it's how is this what is this communicating about a relationship, about the idea of a relationship?
No, I think that it's an exploration of, I think it's an opportunity to explore troubling gender politics and troubling understanding of relationships in a way that could be very interesting. Now, I know that on the other hand, a lot of times if you try to lampoon something bad, oftentimes you'll just end up continuing
You just can't like just do it. I mean, like, it doesn't count as lampooning it if you just do it.
I know. I don't know how to turn that corner. I'm not a narrative guy. So how do you?
I would say it's just really lazy. Like, don't do it. That's the answer.
But I can imagine. I can imagine.
You know, I don't even disagree with Sean's point either, because you know I remember I was telling my friend about a poker hand where there was this guy who was getting really out of line, so I re-raised him with 3-6 suited, and the flop came Jack 6-5, and I wasn't quite sure whether to buy her out of bed or whether to just sort of reevaluate. And I asked my friend Tristan, who's the smartest person in the universe, what would you do here? And he's like, I wouldn't have done that in the first place.
Yeah, it's tough. No, I mean, I want to say, I gotta say, like, I think it could be done. I can feel it in my bones. I don't know how to pull it off, though, and I would not trust myself at this point in my life to pull it off. But
I'm not saying you can't make this game.
It could be hilarious and fantastic.
I'm saying that the I'm gonna do a thing, but it's okay because I'm lampooning it.
Well, not just
that's just a bad way to go.
Right? Not only lampooning, but there's a way to tackle issues by using a crass premise. It's very difficult. I think the Onion does it sometimes.
The Onion doesn't always succeed at it, but
no, sometimes they have to apologize.
So my question is, how do we do this game in a way that like legitimately gets at some of the interesting ideas? That's like,
honestly, I feel like the big problem with it is that, like, okay, so let's say as a premise, it is piecing back together your loved one, which is already kind of gruesome and morbid to begin with.
But let's have no cynicism on it, right?
I want to approach that with no cynicism on it, right? Let's say that this is the game.
Yeah.
The problem I would have with it is that the gameplay actually does not have anything to do with the person. It has to do with collection. Honestly, I think that collection is a perfectly good mechanic. You need these 3 silver emblems to be able to open the gateway to the next phase. Or, Banjo-Kazooie, you need 850 notes to open this door, so go out and collect them. But it's kind of I feel like the premise was based in sort of like this, in ridiculousness, but to sort of step in and be like, how do we treat this sensitively and appropriately? I think the difficulty is just having it like the game mechanic related all to this person.
Totally agree.
Like,
sure.
Totally agree.
How do you tweak that? Because if it's all action scenes, action scenes don't have a lot to do with piecing together your loved one. You don't want to make it like a Nintendo DS Operation game. Or there should be no stylus involved.
I'm curious. Like, what is the metaphor of piecing together your loved one? Like, what does that mean?
That could be very sweet. That could be extremely sweet. God, I love the idea of treating this like very, very sort of heartfelt. That's the funniest thing so far.
That honestly, like, impressed me so much about Katawa Shouju, where it's. If you hear the premise and the name of the game translated literally is Crippled Girls, and people were like, "Whoa, what are you doing naming it that?" And you are a guy trying to date girls in a school for people with disabilities, and yet it's done so tastefully and sensitively.
Yeah. Yes.
So we are doing My Ghoul Friend in the most tasteful, sensitive way we can, and I think that's hilarious.
Bill, it's not enough to just say like we're gonna do this tastefully and sensitively.
Tasteful?
I mean, like it worked for Katawa Shoujo because they played it as a dating game. At its core, it is a dating game.
Yeah.
And they didn't sort of, they were tasteful about the subject matter. If we're talking about a game that is an action and collection game, where again, I think the fundamental problem is that the girlfriend boyfriend character has no role right now in the game. That's broken on a more fundamental level than
What if the girlfriend or boyfriend character is commanding you to get various parts from different people?
Yeah.
So one thing I think would be very interesting.
That's narrative inclusion.
Is to spend a long segment establishing the relationship with this character, where you really like this character, and then I want to reference God of War 3, which at its core was like, dude, Kratos, he's quite mad, he's quite angry, and he's still seeking vengeance, and he's just pissed about the death of his wife and kid. He's enraged, and put in that context where if you develop a relationship with someone and then they die and you need to repair this person, I think a really interesting trade-off could be, what are you willing to do and what are you willing to go for to help the repiecing of this?
Oh, yeah!
You're going to hurt other people as a result of that.
Yes, exactly. This guy, the main character, has to like not be like a murderer. He has to be like abhorred by what he's doing.
I mean, it already has this sort of like wretched premise of like how far are you willing to go for it. And I think there's something juicy there, as opposed to how we were discussing it at the start. We're like, oh, Davin P.
So maybe it should be maybe it should be a stealth game where you have to sneak up behind people and kill them. No, I don't. Hold on. What am I doing?
Cut off body parts.
Hey, we can always move on to another game topic.
That might be, I think we may have gotten our viewers. We'll leave it as an exercise to the viewers to continue.
So I actually really like this. I honestly thought the girlfriend theme was kind of silly and would be fun to just sort of enjoy talking about. But this one I actually like quite a bit, which would be, how sometimes fate intervenes so that you meet your one true soulmate, fall in love, and get married. That's your job now. You are the demigod Cupid, and your challenge each game level is to match up two star-crossed lovers. So how well you perform each piece determines if the relationship endures or ends. And Davin P references, like tutorial Adam and Eve. And then has Bronze Age, Helen of Troy and her suitors, Dark Ages, King Arthur / Lancelot and Guinevere. Other
good.
Future Han Solo and Leia.
Nice.
Because I actually think that that's really interesting. Where the what's most effective in my eyes in a lot of just linear media, books, TV, movies, is when there's a character who you relate to, who you can really put yourself in that person's shoes, and they start to do things that you just desperately don't want them to do. Yeah. Torturing the protagonist is just a common theme in linear media, and we had that problem. I think Sims 3 is the most transparent version of that, where we wanted to do stuff that was kind of silly and ridiculous. Hey, wouldn't it be funny if blah? And there was nothing stopping us from doing that. We just went to it. And Katwa Shoju said, you are this person. Make your decisions for this person. But we weren't quite the main character. We're trying to influence the main character. And this just directly says, if you can make someone feel guilty at this point in time, will that help them make the right decision? If you can make them feel excited and say a funny joke, what will that be? I love the idea of sort of second order sort of things. Yeah. Like,
Mm-hmm. So Mike, I agree. I think this is a really interesting premise. Sean, what specifically are your interactions? What are the mechanics of the game? What are you doing as Cupid that influences people?
So did you ever play the 1989 game, I think, Populous or Populous 2 by Bullfrog?
I did, and I enjoy the cube as well.
Yeah,
Populous was fun.
Yeah, I mean, there was this interesting thing about Populous where so Populous is a god game where I guess it was like I guess you'd call it an RTS. We were trying to, Dungeon Keeper might even be a better example, also by Bullfrog.
Yeah.
In Dungeon Keeper, you are trying to build up demons, or like a little hell. Like it's literally a RTS where you are building out a hell. You bring out demons to like hang out in and party, go to the casino. It's a little torture room, place for people to work. It's a nice little setup. Mm-hmm. But you don't actually control people. You just sort of influence them. I almost imagine of like Bill with your thesis on ants, where you just sort of spray in pheromones and fumes, and
this is
sort of guides the ants along.
This is totally my wheelhouse right now.
And I like the idea of having these semi-autonomous agents just sort of moving around, these two characters who have their own personalities, who do things, and people respond to different sorts of stimulus. Like a lot of managers will talk about this with their employees, where sometimes there's some employees that you have to yell at to get them to do their work. There's other employees that you have to be really encouraging to get them to do the work. And that at the end of the day, the goal for the manager is very clear. I want to get them to do the work. What if there was a game that had that clear goal, get these people together? So you're sort of exploring how the person's personality reacts to these varying things as they interact with other people, and of course as they interact with the person that you're trying to get them with. And I think that could be really cool, because people like games like SimCity because underlying everything is some system, and you're sort of trying to figure out how it works, and you always have a murky understanding of it. And I think that given the sort of weight of relationships and relationship context, putting in some influence there and having someone be like, oh, well, you know, I'm tired and I have to go home. You're like, no, 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 it doesn't work. No, 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 you know, and that sort of thing.
I gotta say, this sounds very simmy, and I'm normally a huge sim guy, but I think it'd be amazing if it was more of a fan fiction-y type thing almost, where it's you get these characters, they're all hanging out, you have an episode or two where you get to know them, and then as the player, you have to decide who gets together. And your goal, I guess, is to have them be happy or something. But it's like a TV series almost, where you get to choose who.
Well, there's something interesting about, like, what if we took Hatoful Boyfriend or Karawa Shoujo or a visual novel like that,
hooked up one of the girls with one of the pigeons.
You are not the character. You don't play the character.
Right.
You play somebody else, and your role is matchmaker. This is actually, dude, this is so funny.
Game.
Now I'm thinking about the Jane Austen thing that came up on Twitter a while back.
What's that?
We have a fan on Twitter who was talking about, how would you do a Jane Austen game or visual novel, and one of the things that came up was this idea of like matchmaking, and I think it'd be interesting. Like, what does it do to a game? What does it do to a visual novel if instead of playing the protagonist is not somebody who's going to end up hooking up with anybody at the end of the game? The protagonist is just deciding sort of who gets to hook up with who.
That's interesting.
I don't know. It's a different slant on it.
It feels a little sad. It feels almost like because
why does it have to be sad?
Well, if you hook them up together, you probably won't see them very much for a while, at least.
Yeah.
Unless you are like the family dog or something. Actually, that's a good idea right there.
Oh, you play the family dog.
Puppy love. You are a dog, and you have to hook up your master with someone else. Or you have to decide who you will go live with, and then you hook them up with
someone else. I actually love that premise. I love the idea of semi-control. Where you can't actually tell people what to do. You're just like, come on, I want it so bad. Because from a game perspective, I think rooting is one of the most underrated things of all time.
Rooting, yeah.
Rooting.
Yeah, totally.
I brought up poker earlier. I'll use it again. You are all in on poker. There's 2 more cards to be dealt, and you need any heart will let you win. So you're like, come on, heart! Heart! And they deal it into spade, and you're like, ah! Heart! And you're yelling at the table, and then a heart comes, and you're like, I'm incredible! Like, that's really fun. I love the idea of like being a dog and like getting lost and running over to the neighbor's house and like bringing like a ball, like play fetch with a girl that you want your master to get with. Like,
you control where you go on a walk.
Yeah.
Like every day you go out for a walk and you can like lead.
You can like pull on the leash.
Yeah, you pull on the leash and take him to different places.
And you do things like hide his glasses or something, or like poop in his shoe and. Actually, this is starting to sound a lot like the Cat and the Coup.
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh man,
yeah. Dude, honestly, and the dog would have to be a corgi.
Yes. Oh
yes.
Yeah.
Oh god, corgi media is one of my favorite types of media.
Is it a corgi who belongs to a haberdasher? Is that
the corgi and the haberdasher?
Yeah,
that sounds like a San Francisco brunch place. So, anyways, now that we've destroyed his Cupid concept,
no way, man! Make the Cupid more real world. Make it the corgi, Conrad, the corgi of love.
What if he's actually Cupid, but to visit the real world, he has to be in corgi disguise?
So what are the mechanics in this game? What are the systems involved? Because right now this is sounding like a short game, but is it like are Are we like going to his office and causing amazing havoc?
Oh, that'd be fun.
Would that be fun? Okay, I'm going to imagine a game where it's like an adventure-style game, like some of the old-school LucasArts Scum BM games.
Yeah.
Where you're a dog and you're moving around and trying to create drams that put him in situations.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. I think it should be an adventure game, but I think it should also have a love system where people have, sort of hidden state. But here's the thing. It should cut to kind of a what's that lawyer game for the Nintendo DS?
Phoenix Wright.
Phoenix Wright, man.
It should have the characters that slide in from the side and they talk to each other, and then they slide out again. So it's like a adventure game with like conversations that happen.
Dude, no, that's perfect. Okay, so imagine a game where there are. I don't care, I'm going to go ambitious. There's like 30 different unique, interesting puzzles that you can solve to cause 30 different unique types of situations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, I'm thinking in the old Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis.
Yeah.
There's a moment where you're in this bazaar in the Middle East or maybe in North Africa where there's a hot air balloon and you know that you need to get in the hot air balloon to go. So the goal's already clearly defined. So then you sort of figure out that you need a ticket to get in the hot air balloon. And there's a beggar who has a ticket and will give it to you if you give him a melon. And you give him a melon and he says, I need a knife to cut open a melon. And there's a knife thrower saying that he will give a knife to anyone who volunteers to be like one of the prop people to have knives thrown at him. But Indiana Jones, which is a character you play, refuses to do it, so you're trying to talk your partner into doing it. And so this clear chain gets established, because like, what if you're a dog and you know that like lunch is coming up in an hour and here's the backwards string of events you need to cause it happen, and you're like, come on, you're like running around trying to hide from people. It's like a stealth puzzle game where you kind of like get the romance working.
And how could you have a stealth game without the special type of vision? But in this one, you get to see smell-o-vision.
Oh yeah. Yes. Dude, oh my god, this game sounds amazing. So you're trying to like hook up your owner, and at the start of every game, it randomly generates an owner personality type.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Hey, is there an engine out there for Scum type games? Can we just build
Scum?
Well, there's Scum, yeah.
Oh, is Scum easy to use though, or
I don't know.
Assuming
it
exists on top of Flash.
Yeah. I mean, there's
so cool.
Sean, it sounds a little bit like Ghost Trick. Did you ever play Ghost Trick?
Ghost Trick?
Yeah.
I've never heard of Ghost Trick.
It was kind of a late in the cycle DS game, like regular DS.
Yeah.
In the like indirect control puzzle solving kind of a thing. It's basically an adventure game where you play a ghost and you have indirect. I only played like a level or two of it. I didn't play that much of it, but you have indirect control over the scene, and as a ghost, you have this ability to time travel like in closed loops in an interesting way. So you watch this scene play out and it goes wrong, and then you like watch it again and you try to like influence things at the proper time so that it'll go the right way.
Oh god,
and it's a very similar kind of thing.
That's amazing. Ghost Trick, is it called?
Yeah, Ghost Trick.
Apparently you have really tall hair.
You do. Yep.
So wait, is this game, is it good? Is it well done? Are there issues with it, or?
I didn't play it enough to give like a real recommendation, but there were things that I really liked about the aesthetics, and it seemed like it was an interesting concept.
Nice.
Ghost
Maybe
Trick.
it's time to. It gets 83% on Metacritic. Is that good or bad?
It's pretty good. It's not like amazing, but it's good.
So if you like this kind of game, you'll probably like it.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, awesome.
Now, I don't think that it is particularly focused on relationships, but I do think at least some of the scenes that you're doing involve like relationships between other people, where like they're fighting and you have to get them to make up or get somebody to leave or something like that.
So what's the name of our game, though? Is it Puppy Love or is it something else?
I mean, Puppy Love is pretty good.
We could stylize it and be like puppy : loved and put brackets around it.
Puppy : bracket love.
Like to the third.
To the third.
Yeah.
To the less than 3.
The square root of negative puppy love.
Dude. And we define it through the course of the gameplay. How meta indeed.
Well, if you listeners have any better ideas than Puppy Love for the name, please tweet it. Hashtag MetaDating. Hashtag Puppy Love.
I do think though that there is some space to create more effective simulations of sort of romance style behavior. I mean, because a lot of what we've been talking about is based on just writing narrative, like actual content.
Yeah.
But in The Sims, there's so much ridiculousness
that happens in an emergent way. That's sort of...
And I feel like they could maybe attune that a little bit, but I don't know. In fact, I hate to say it, but
sorry, go ahead.
Keep going. Sean, you, Sean.
No, I mean, I agree. Like, we kind of skipped over your. Every time we play the game, the owner has a different like personality generated. Yeah. I think there's actually something really interesting about playing a dating game where you can't predict the outcome. I think that, Bill, as you mentioned early on in the episode, there's something that feels a little bit broken when you play Karawa Shoujo for the second time or the third time, and now you're just hunting for achievements. Now you're just trying to get the ending, and you have to resort to looking at a flowchart.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that's kind of lovely about The Sims is that you can't do that. Mm-hmm. There's no opportunity to. I mean, there are ways to game it. There are ways to
like you could
play
look it
the
up.
System, but
if you don't look it up, you're not going to necessarily.
Well, and even if you look it up, there's this situation that appears in the game isn't something that you have specific knowledge about. You have to infer this situation based on like your knowledge of the system.
Yeah,
I think that's really neat. I think it'd be fun to do a dating game, especially to do a dating game where like the girl that you like as a player and the guy that you're leading around on the dog leash aren't compatible. They're never going to work out.
That's terrible.
Well, it's not terrible.
It's so sad.
It's the game becomes about trying to figure out like who's the right person for this person.
Oh, okay.
Rather than like, I'm going to try to get this girl.
Yeah.
What if each of the possible love interests also had a dog that represented their personality?
That's kind of amazing.
You're just throwing another wrench into the puzzle, man. Come on, the way the real game would do it is you're the only dog in the entire world. There are no other dogs. You're the only dog that exists, and of course the only dog that can exert influence, and everyone else is just a script.
Yep.
Everyone else is just a script.
So, because we've been going for close to 2 hours now, it is tragically time to close out the final episode of MetaDating. And I wanted to ask, okay, so we played all these games, and I wanted to know if you had one game to recommend that you thought had a really powerful and interesting, I guess just interesting whatever it is about some sort of romantic or personal relationship that you would like to recommend that we maybe did or didn't play. I'd love to know it, of course. Mine's a little old school. I would definitely... a strong one for me was Final Fantasy VII.
Oh. With
the whole Ares Tifa thing going down, because it just spends such a long time developing everybody.
Yeah.
And it just sets the stakes so high, and it's not even really that there's not even a lot of interactivity in terms of the storyline. It's a lot of you just experiencing the storyline, but it was still quite strong for me.
I'm gonna say Cute Night.
Cute Night. I don't even know anything about Cute Night.
Cute Night is it's by Hanako Games. It's like a really indie little thing. It's one of my favorite games in a lot of ways. Like I constantly am borrowing mechanics and stuff from this game. But it's
Kishikawaii.
It's basically like it's a different take on the visual novel. The relationship part of it is very visual novel-y, but it's built into a whole sort of stats-based game. That's all the mechanic is time management. So you have 2 or 3 years, I don't remember what it is, and every week you decide what you're going to do for that week. And so you could like go busk at the town square, or you could get a job cleaning out the stables or being a cook. And if you're really bad at it, then you're not going to make any money. But you get better and your skills build up. And every job sort of builds skills and makes skills decline. And so you are doing this whole like skill thing. And every once in a while, depending on the job, you'll meet somebody. And then that plays out in a very visual novel kind of a way. It becomes like a very linear storyline of the relationship, but you kind of have to hunt them down, and you only hunt them down while you're doing these other things. The game is really about this girl who's sort of self-actualizing, who's trying to figure out who she wants to be.
Dude, that sounds awesome.
So totally recommending that game.
I am actually literally getting out my credit card right now. I'm going to buy it right after the show.
Whatever you do, don't make the mistake that I've made before and like show that sort of thing on air, because really easy to be like, look at my cool credit card design.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, you guys pulled some really cool suggestions. I just have to go with Katawa, because I am surprised at how kind of amazing it's been. It kind of wears off, but it's definitely worth playing. You have to play. You kind of have to play like you'll know if you like it by probably the end of Act 2, I think. But also just be aware that the different routes are extremely different. So, yeah, they're extremely different. It turns into it's even a different like. Just a whole different realm of like a whole different palette for each character, which is kind of cool because they're written
by different people. I mean, that's one of the most interesting things I've ever seen in writing in a game, actually.
Right, and so it's like if you like it, you also get you've got each arc takes about like 5 or 6 hours, so and there's 5 arcs, so you get that much gameplay and it's free and it's like might as well do it. Yeah, and I'm still picking apart why it has struck me more than other games. So I might dive into more visual novels and see if I can kind of like grasp the medium a little bit more, and then
yeah,
cool.
That might be fun. It also just makes me want to make a choose your own adventure.
Yeah, like one of these days, I desperately want to do that.
Yes. So yeah.
Well, allow me to say to you, wonderful, dear, awesome viewer, it was a pleasure to have been with you throughout this entire long season of MetaDating. And without any further ado, I am Sean Plott.
And I'm Bill Grainer.
And I'm Sean Bouchard.
It's been a pleasure to hang out with you, and hope to see you soon for more awesome video stuffs in the future. Bye!
Bye!